Well, Wiley, first of all, welcome to the community clubhouse. I don't know, have you done any live hits in here yet?
I've never been in this room. This place is really cool.
It's very cool.
I feel like I want to hang out here a few sometime this next homestand. Man.
Yeah.
This is good. Is this your private room?
No, yeah. This is me in Victoria's studio. No. Danielle and the wonderful community team. This is their room where they have events pregame, other times, and they also let us use it as our podcast studio a lot. So welcome in here. It's good to have you in here.
I'm happy to be here, Ricky.
Yeah. Well, thank you for taking the time. I know you're a very busy man these days.
Not very busy.
Nah, don't come on. You're being modest.
Only after about 3 p.m. Anytime 3 p.m., I don't want to tell you when I get out of bed. I get out of bed late.
Oh, I remember those days.
Oh, yeah. This is like year 15 of college for me, it feels.
Yeah,
as far as the sleep cycle is concerned.
I love my daughter more than anything. But boy, it sure was nice those days of waking up at 10:30 or 11 on a game day. Oh boy, especially gosh. I was thinking that this morning when she woke up about 6:55 after I got home at 1 a.m. after last night's walk off.
Fun. Yeah, okay, good.
I love her. I'm already getting way off topic.
That's all right. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming in, man. Just wanted to, this is the first time I'm behind the Braves, first of many, hopefully. Wanted to get into your early life, career, what brought you here, and all good.
Oh, it's Jose. Yeah. What's up? You guys the man.
Yeah. Hey, how you doing?
Yeah. Good. That's how I eat every day.
Yeah.
Jose says, "Here's what we got." Yeah. No,
yeah.
That's yeah. Shh. No, Jose's the man. That's awesome.
He is.
No, that gives us production value. This is authentic.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We'll probably edit a little bit of that, but you can leave some of it in there.
I wouldn't edit any of it.
Yeah, okay. Well, anyways, now I'm reminded that I forgot to put the "Do Not Enter" recording sign up. So we're off to a rip-roaring start here.
Hey, anybody come on by.
Yeah, this is what podcasts are. It's just hanging out.
I love it. Yeah.
All right. Well, I've known you. I was thinking back. The first I can remember, and I'm not 100% sure. I know first year at Truist Park, seeing you in the press box. What I couldn't quite pinpoint in my brain, it might have something to do with that whole not sleeping with the baby in the house thing. Did you have some things at Turner Field that you did too? You did, right?
Yes. When was your first year here?
2015.
So my first year paycheck from the Braves or whatnot was 2013.
Wow. Okay.
And so story is I went to Georgia Tech. I went to Georgia Tech because they needed a baseball announcer. And they're like, "What do you want to major in?" And I was like, "I don't know. What do you got?" So I majored in finance, just picked it off a sheet. I knew Tech needed baseball announcers. Anyway, I started working at Georgia Tech in their athletic department. Worked in sports information, which is a different term for media relations, but basically keeping the stats and writing the releases and coordinating interviews and those types of things. And one of our basketball sports information director, our PR guy for men's basketball, is a guy named Mike Stamus, who you know.
Moose,
who has been scoring the games with the Braves, I think, since 99, maybe even earlier than that. But he's been doing it for over 25 years. Anyway, he was my boss in the office at Tech, and then the Braves reached out and said, "Hey, do you have any students who might be interested in helping us work the press box cash register, or cashier box is what it really was." Because Moses, who I'm sure you remember, who did that job better than anybody.
Pay up, Doc.
Yeah, exactly, 100%.
Got my $10, Doc? Yeah, I remember Moses.
He might be the most well-known, unknown person in Atlanta sports media. I'm
really
serious.
I mean, all you had to say was Moses, and the instantly was like, "Pay up, Doc."
Yep.
Got my $10, Doc? Yeah.
100%. So at the time, he either maybe he just wasn't working as much, or might have been Hawks crossover because he did the same thing down at Phillips or State Farm as well. But basically, I was kind of Moses' fill-in. So whenever he couldn't work, I came down to work. And I remember the first game I worked, it was May of 2013. I just finished, or I was wrapping up my freshman year of college. And Bob Costa was just doing the game that night for MLB Network Showcase or whatnot. And he goes, "Hey, how are you doing?" I was like, "This is crazy." So it's like, "What's your name?" It's like, "Wiley Ballard." Like, "Wiley Ballard." Or Bob Costa was like, "This is a cool gig." So that's my first memory. And I think even Smoltzy might have been working that night. And I'm just looking around. And again, I'm literally just running a cash box. Like, I mean, I was just, "Ricky, do you want a hot dog? $5. All right, cool."
Yeah.
And basically I knew enough to know that, or I'd heard it enough that, like, this industry is all about getting your foot in the door, finding a way in there. And when I'll never forget, I got the email Monday morning back in March that year, being like, "You want to work in the Braves press box?" And I was like, yes. Because baseball is where I wanted to be. Grew up a huge Braves fan. So yeah, that's kind of how the career stuff started. And then as far as just the interest in the industry as a whole, I was probably, I mean, my buddies from elementary school and high school will tell you I was probably about 6 or 7 years old when I started to like want to commentate their, they would play Mario Tennis of all things, and I'd like do play-by-play of Bowser sends one down the line. Oh, Princess Peach with a backhand. I'm serious. I can see it to this day.
That's awesome.
And now my buddies are like, oh, for I don't know, the last like 25 years, it's like that was weird, man. And now it's like, oh, that was cool. Yeah, I was like, oh, that's weird. We flipped the script on that.
You made it cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anyway, that was kind of I knew I wanted to do it since I was 6 or 7. I'd done some. Went on to do some theater stuff, on stage. I ended up getting cut from a lot of plays. Actually, I got like one part, and I was like psyched about it. But I did a lot of that, a lot of acting. But I was too big a sports fan to. No, that's where I wanted to be. So I just it felt like it was a good intersection between performance and also sports. And then the baseball thing kind of came late, to be honest with you. I was in 8th. It was a summer before my 9th grade year. And my brother and I were super into stats on all, football. We were huge ice hockey fans, but we love stats. And so saw a scorebook like in Sports Authority one day. I was like, this is cool. Like, what is this? Because my parents are not baseball people. We can get into that later. They're not baseball people. But my brother like, this is cool. And so I'm sitting in the outfield. It was so either late June, early July. I mean, I've gone back and looked at the game. I still have the scorebook to this day. But we're playing the Phillies. We're sitting in center field. And I'm like trying to figure out how do I like track this how do I write fourth? Who's 4? Who's 3? And all that type of stuff. But I remember just walking away that night being like, I all of a sudden understood baseball on a totally different level. And I was like mesmerized. And then I wound up TiVoing games. I remember I scored Charlie Morton's Major League debut like the next week against the Angels, and I was watching on ESPN. And I would sit on my if you're scoring at home, like I was that guy, like as a 14-year-old. It was hilarious. My mom was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I don't worry about it." And I just fell in love with baseball, man. I could not get enough of it. I couldn't read enough of it. Baseball America, the book that I've highlighted in notes was Tim McCarver's Baseball for Brain Surgeons. I just couldn't get enough of it. It was fascinating. And that just kind of became my goal, was to watch as much baseball as I could. And, I figured I was going to spend a lot of money on baseball tickets as an adult. So I was like, well, if I could flip that into maybe I'm making some money, that'd be a good deal. So, yeah, that's a lot of it.
That's the origin story. Yeah. Did you play at all, or because you mentioned? I mean, you're in broadcasting Mario Tennis at age 6 or 7. So for you to have that interest early on, it's super cool when I talk to anybody who had an interest that young and they managed to pursue it on into their actual career later in life. It doesn't happen very often. This is true. When I was 5, 6, 7, that range, I was at a NASCAR track every weekend. I didn't want to be a driver like Dad. I wanted to be the flag man. And there's a picture in my office of me waving a green flag at a NASCAR race. That was what I wanted.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
What race?
Martinsville.
That is so cool.
It's my favorite picture ever because it's my dad in his car driving by in turn 2 and me waving the flag as he's going by.
Oh, my God.
But that's what I wanted to be, was a flag man.
Yeah.
I did not pursue that all these years later. So the fact that you found something that early and pursued it. So were you playing sports at all, or you just loved as a fan?
So I played 1 year T-ball. They put me in left center, which, as we all know, if you get put in left center at age 6, it means you're a good athlete. Like, this guy can go get it.
That's where they put me too.
Oh, yeah. They're just dropping bombs in the left center at 6 years old. So anyway, I was like, this is kind of boring. Not a whole lot going on. And again, my parents, my dad, neither my mom, just not much of a baseball background. So they're like, did you like it? And I was like, kind of boring. I was like, all right, moved on. I played a ton of roller hockey, of all things, to the point where when I was my dad still makes fun of me to this day. When I was about 8 or 9 years old, I remember I was a huge Thrashers fan. Okay, I was right in the demographic. I was probably 6 or 7 years old when they got here. And anytime you have an expansion team, one of the goals of the ownership and group is like, hey, we got to get the local youth interested in our sport. And so that, I was right in their target range. So played a ton of roller hockey, to the point when I was 8 or 9, I told my dad I wanted to move to Detroit because you watch a Red Wings game and it says Hockey Town. And I was like, that sounds like the best place in the world. So, yeah, I mean, truthfully, JP Dellacamera, who's known for doing women's soccer on the national level, he was the voice of the Thrashers. So I tell people, and maybe this is sacrilegious as an Atlanta native when you got Skip, Pete, and Don and Joe all doing the Braves game at that point. The reason I got realize the way I recognized it as a job. I was like, who is JP Della Camera? This guy just talks about the hockey game every night. This is amazing. So that's kind of how I got on my radar. But yeah, I played a lot of roller hockey. I played a little bit of lacrosse. You should have seen my face when I was probably about 12 or 13 years old, and I realized that like roller hockey wasn't a varsity sport in Georgia. I kind of looked at my parents. I was like, "What are you? What have I been doing? Like, what? I just been. You guys should have told me this just ends, and I'm like 13. So that's good. So I tried to pick up lacrosse. It was fine, but yeah, I still play ice hockey to this day, actually. So I get my fix. But
that's awesome.
Yeah.
No, I love that. That's who your inspiration was, because there's. Obviously, we've had broadcasters on here before, and we always talk about, Skip and Pete, and Skip and Pete, Don and Joe. Those are my guys, and Ernie too. Ernie was kind of, as I was coming of age, he was kind of on his way towards retirement. But it's cool to hear. It's cool to hear another name in that.
Yeah.
I've thought about this some over the years. So years ago, and just the importance of broadcasters and good ones and the right ones, and just having them on a broadcast. One time years ago when I was working for Major League Baseball, we did this event. I think it was like a watch party for the 100th anniversary of Fenway Park. We were doing it in New York, so watching on a, big TVs. And the idea was we were going to have Red Sox fans come in, and we were piping in the actual noise from Fenway.
Yep.
But not the broadcaster. So it was going to be just
like you're at the game.
Like you're at the game, right? So in theory, this sounded really cool. I don't even think we made it a full inning before we're all sitting around there going, "This sucks." We need to put the broadcast on. Like, this is. I shouldn't say it sucks, but it was weird.
Like, this is weird.
It was really weird,
this.
and we didn't like it. I didn't like it, and I always, again, I grew up loving guys like the Braves team. I mentioned NASCAR. There's NASCAR teams guys when I was growing up that I loved. NFL guys that I grew up loved, still do. Like those are the voices of your childhood, essentially,
man.
And so for you, it was JP. Is that
JP Della Camera, and then again back to the timing on when I scored that game that one day in the summer. It was actually Boog and Joe. I know Boog was here for about 3 seasons, I think.
He was great. He and Joe were great together.
Amazing. It might have been 2. I think it was 08 and 09, but that just happened to coincide with when I was like watching every game. So Boog was actually a huge, guy that I remember. And then obviously Chip came in when I was in high school, and Chip's amazing. That's probably one of the cool. I mean, that's been one of the highlights so far for me professionally. Was when I first started working with Braves TV about 5-6 years ago. I was the TV stats guy for Chip, and I remember it was 2020, so it was already weird,
really weird.
And then I'm sitting there. I'll never forget. I was driving to Truist Park, and I walk up and we're doing the Braves Mets game in New York, and it's just me, Chip, and Tom Glavine in the room, and it's the start of the 2020 season. I was like, what is happening? This is so bizarre.
Yeah.
I'm here. The game's not. We're in a room. Yeah. So I'll never forget that day. That was weird.
That whole year, there's so much about coming to the press box during that season.
Yep.
That's so weird because, I mean, those of us in the press box, we were it.
It was it.
You
Us
had
and the grounds crew.
Grounds crew and us.
And Blooper.
And Blooper, who was just... And that was part of what entertained you every night is all right, what costume is Blooper going to wear to try to get on TV? Because obviously he's not entertaining. He wasn't just trying to go out there and
it was just for us, just for the TV audience.
Just for the literally 7 people in the press box. So I had to write this down because I wanted to make sure I didn't miss any of them. So I went to your website, and I was just looking at the experience you've got in play-by-play. And I wanted to make sure I didn't miss any sports.
You can miss. There's a lot you can miss.
No. This is what I got: baseball, football, men's and women's basketball, soccer, volleyball, softball, and flag football. Yeah, obviously, and we'll add Mario Tennis to this as well.
Yes,
but,
yeah. Well, it's you gotta get the inside scoop for that. We don't promote that one.
That's right. I would be remiss if I didn't ask about flag football.
Yeah. 100%. So the GHSA about, I guess 5 years ago now. I was speaking of 2020. They wanted to sanction flag football as a sport. It was getting momentum in a few other states, and Georgia bought into it. And it quick side note: the amount of girls who would talk about how excited they were to have a chance to play football, because there's a lot of girls who grew up in Georgia where football is like a massive deal.
Yeah.
And they've got brothers who get to play and all this, and a lot of them can throw and catch and all that, but there's obviously there wasn't a girls football version. Of course, you got a handful who will go play tackle on the boys' side, which is great, but again, there wasn't really that sport, and so the GHSA basically said, hey, we want to do this. And The Falcons also played a big role in it as well. I don't want to leave them out. They actually the first state championship was 2019, but it wasn't sanctioned by GHSA, and then shortly after that, in 2020, it took off. So I'd been doing some sideline reporting for GPB at the time on their high school football package and done some state championships. And Kevin Gerke, who again, one of the most well-known unknowns, behind the scenes in Atlanta sports, gave me a call and said, "You ever called flag football?" And the one piece of advice I got when I started pursuing this was just never say no. Just say yes every time. And so I answered truthfully. I said no, but the gap between the no and the but was like there wasn't one. I was like, no, but I know it and I'll learn it and it will be good to go. So and they basically said, all right, let's give it a shot. And yeah, it was really cool. It's been really rewarding just to see how much the sport has grown. I think I got back look at my notes. I think the first year it was COVID too, so keep that in mind. But it was probably 60 to 70 teams in the state.
Okay.
And now I think we're over 250, 220, somewhere in there. And again, part of that's COVID, but I also think everybody was kind of looking around and saying the schools that we're doing is like, this is kind of great. And I think it was also, now we're seeing kids students going to college to play flag football. I mean, again, I'm not saying he's going to Alabama or UGA, but there's it's got a presence at the Division II, Division III level, and there's scholarship money and the whole thing. So
yeah, it's super
really
cool.
Yeah.
I've got twin younger sisters, and they graduated high school about 10 years ago. I think it was 2015. They were both year-round athletes. Played softball, basketball, and volleyball. And I think it was at the end of their senior year, all the female athletes, and I think some that even didn't play sports, it was like a charity thing where they all played a flag football game. Mm-hmm. And I went, went to watch, and it was really fun. I was really proud because my one sister was the quarterback of her team. The other team did nothing but run the ball. They didn't have anybody that wanted to throw. She was determined, no, we need to run some passing play. And she was out there. She was actually running like the offense and she was dropping bombs, and I would the pride I felt in that was awesome. But I also remember thinking on a serious note, I'm like, I wish this was, and this is a decade ago in a small town, Virginia. I wish this was available as an actual sport, not just this was just a charity event at the local school. So that's super cool what you called that. I did want to back up a little bit. What was the first actual, not Mario Tennis, the actual professional gig that you did play-by-play for?
Well, the term professionals, a little different. I mean, the other timing aspect of this is Play on Sports, which is the NFHS network now. Live streaming was just kind of getting going when I was in high school. And so I remember my junior year, we had a meeting the summer before my junior year with one of our teachers. I was volunteering at a summer camp that Daniel Searle, this teacher was working at. And he knew I was in school. He also taught, anyway, he was basically like, hey, we're doing this kind of sports, we're going to try and stream some broadcasts. We're going to try and put some games like TV, starting a TV production. And he's like, you interested? I said, yes. Because at the time I'd already kind of known that when I went to college, I wanted to go to Georgia Tech because I knew there was going to be an opportunity to call some baseball games. So it felt like instead of having to wait another 2 years to do a game, it was all of a sudden, boom, here it is. And so I got to do a ton of stuff with them. So I'd say, junior, senior year, I got to call a lot of games. And then, again, got to Georgia Tech, started doing a lot of college baseball that spring of my freshman year. And then in the fall, I started doing high school football on Friday nights. So I was always the guy who was getting back to campus around 10:30, 11, being like, where you been? I was like, high school football. And they're like, are you serious? And I was like, yeah. And again, now we look back on this 15 years later. So, that was cool, man. I'm like, well, I don't know if you guys used that word previously, but that's okay. Of course, in college, though, Ricky, the night is young at 10:30, 11
I was
o'clock.
going to say,
so it was beautiful. Yeah, it was great.
Pre-game was just pre-gaming, I should say. Not the pre-game for the high school football. Just the pre-gaming at the apartment was just wrapping up at our place at about 10:30.
Yeah. So the timing was actually perfect for me. It was like, all right, boom, here we go.
Yeah.
So I'd say those were kind of my first ventures into on-air stuff, and then just like I said, try to say yes to everything.
You've done so many things with the Braves over the years. Again, the things behind the scenes, doing stats, doing stuff in the press box. Again, I remember, I think I'm pretty sure. That's why I asked you earlier. I was pretty sure I remembered you in the Turner Field cafeteria. I don't know that we ever had much of a conversation then, but I remember the first year at Truist Park talking to you. I actually remember. Gosh, this is how far we go back now. I remember I was out at a Mexican restaurant.
Yes, I was hoping this was going to get there. Absolutely.
I was at a Mexican restaurant, and this is how long ago this was.
Oh, yeah.
I was on a date.
You were.
With not my wife. So this is before she and I even met. So this is going back a ways. Were you on a date too? Or were you with a friend?
I was with a friend.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, it was with a friend, but yes.
I don't think I ever asked you that, but I got the vibe that it's like, oh, these are friends hanging out.
Yeah, we're friends. We'd known each other forever. She's great. Yeah.
Well, that restaurant was great. What was the name of it?
Nuevo Laredo.
Yeah, okay.
Because every time I get dinner with that friend, she's like, let's go to Nuevo Laredo. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, it's good.
Yeah.
Like, I'm saying we go every time.
Yeah. Okay.
But anyway. But yeah, I saw he's like, oh, it's first date. Ricky, what's up?
Yeah.
I hope I didn't say anything stupid, although I probably did.
No, it was actually, I remember the first date. It was actually like one of the best first dates where we hit it off, just hitting off.
Yeah.
This podcast had just launched. And while I was at dinner with her that night, because if you launch a new podcast and it, like the algorithm, like it does pretty well on the start.
Yeah.
The algorithm, at least on the Apple charts, will shoot it way up and make it seem a little inflated in the rankings. So we were like top 3 in the sports, and it came across while I was on the date. So naturally,
I'm a big deal. I'm not gonna
bring this up. But I just thought it was just casually throw it out there
for projecting future income. I'm probably I'm gonna be doing pretty well.
Yeah, I never forget because it was like a wonderful first date where everything was clicking. We're like, okay, can't wait to hang out again. And we did, and it was kind of like, did we run out of stuff to talk about? Yeah. And then we went ahead and went on a third day. It's like, yeah, we really did. Yep. We used it all up on that first date. The podcast had fallen out of the top 5. Yeah. Thrill was gone.
Yeah. But we'll always have Nuevo Laredo.
Me, you, Wiley, and Wiley's friend will always have that night. 2018, whenever that was.
Here's looking at you, kid. All right. Anyway, so I'm also a huge movie guy. I love that
I'm glad you brought that up because I would have forgotten I was going to ask this as a follow-up. Yeah. You did some acting. What was this all like on stage? Anything on camera?
No, all on stage. I did some after-school acting programs.
Okay.
I played Charlie Brown, and You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown.
Okay, that's not bad.
Oh, it was good. Yeah, I mean, it was all middle school. By the time I was in high school, I'd kind of moved on from it. I had a blast. That was great.
You're better than me. I did the 7th grade play.
Yeah.
My role was Pirate Number 2.
I tell you, I had a buddy who was gunning for Pirate Number 2 back in middle school, and he got Pirate Number 4, and he still hadn't gotten over it. It was brutal.
Yeah.
But no, I definitely had the numbered roles for sure.
Yeah. I didn't have to do much, so there was that. Yeah. Okay, so tell me about, because I know you would fill in for Kevin McAlpin sometimes when he was still doing pregame, postgame on 680 The Fan Radio Network. You started popping up. I remember, I don't know how long ago this was. I remember the first time I was sitting on a Saturday, college football Saturday, flipping through. And of course, I'm like you. No offense to, because I know this is probably a predominantly SEC audience.
Yep.
Wiley went to Georgia Tech. I'm a huge University of Virginia fan, so a lot of ACC sports for us. I don't know if it was a Georgia Tech game, a Virginia game, what it was, but I turned on what is now Fanduel at the time, and there you were on the sideline, and I couldn't text you fast enough. I'm like, dude, this is awesome. You made it. This is great.
Yeah, no,
so
I remember that. Yeah.
When did some of those kind of gigs start happening?
Yeah, so I graduated college in 2017. At that point, I've been doing tech baseball for 3 years as the full-time number 1 guy, and I've been doing it for about 5. And a couple things happened. One, Randy Waters, who, again, hardly unknown, one of the more well-known local anchors over the past few decades at 11 Alive, he was also the sideline reporter for Georgia Tech. And he stepped away, had a family situation he wanted to devote some time to. And I had interned with IMG, which was the rights holder. They do a lot of corporate sales and a lot of the promotions you'll see in between breaks at a game. Anyway, they also own the radio rights, and so I worked at IMG, and I'd done baseball the last 5 years, and they basically said, hey, would you want to be the sideline reporter for Georgia Tech football this fall? Feels like Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech knows you. There's some. It just kind of made sense, right? I mean, baseball play-by-play in the spring, football sideline in the fall. That's a role that exists at a lot of different schools, and so started doing that in 2017. Did that for full time for the next 5 seasons, and probably on the whole did about 7 years. Those last couple of years I was kind of in and out. So that was part 1. So that's how I got kind of college football sideline experience on the radio side. And then 2, Beth Marshall, who longtime PR director, is that the right title? head of PR here at the Braves.
That's right.
Yep. So after I'd interned with Braves PR 1 year at 2017, and then in 2018 and 19 I was working for MLB.com. And again, all these jobs are happening because like I'm in the press box and like, oh, we know so and so. There's a need here, an opening there. So after the 2019 season, I asked Beth to get lunch, just kind of pick her brain on things. And she said, yeah, absolutely. We talked. It was great. I've heard a lot of crazy stories, but you got to get her on the podcast. You had already. She's got some great golf stories. Oh my gosh.
She does. And she's now at Augusta.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I get an email probably January, a couple months later, and Beth basically just says, hey, Braves Television needs a new graphics producer. And I told Gretchen Caney, who was obviously the producer for Braves TV, and she had been in that role for a long, long time. But she was moving more into the full-time producer role that year and said, hey, we kind of need some depth at this position. And they basically said, we want somebody who knows baseball, and you can learn the TV part, but the baseball knowledge is critical. And so Beth basically said, I think you'd be the perfect fit for this. And I, of course, jumped at it. And the reason I go into all that details, that kind of got me, a chance to, again, get in the door on the television side with, at the time, what was Bally. And that ACC football package you're talking about was also run out of our office, the Bally Sports South offices. And so I'll be honest, I don't remember the details. I think it was a situation where one of the sideline reporters had taken another job or something had come up, but all of a sudden they had a need middle of the season. And, I'd expressed interest in the past, and hey, you want to be delicate, right? They hired me to do one job. I don't want to just have that job. I don't want to do this job anymore. I want to do that job. But, every once in a while, every 6 months, be like, hey, just so you know, like, this is what I'm doing at Georgia Tech, and this is my on-air work, take a look at it. And so basically, I think you'd had a lot of people tell you similar stories in this business, but timing is what it's all about. And they had a need, and it was short notice, and they could have tried to go through a whole national search to figure this out, but they only had about 4 days, and they said, well, they got that Wiley kid there. Let's see what happens. And so that would have been October of 2021. It was at Virginia Tech was the first game. And I'm so glad it was a 12:30 start because I think I woke up at like 5 a.m. and I was just sweating, just being like, oh, my gosh, what is happening?
It was at Virginia Tech.
Yeah, it was at Virginia Tech.
I bet that's the game I was watching.
Yeah, it was Syracuse, Virginia Tech, I think. Yeah. I think. I also did, because you're a Virginia fan, I also got to do the famous Miami UVA game where nobody scored a touchdown. That was it was 6-6 going to overtime, and then they traded field goals, and then they got to the 2-point conversion portion, and that's the only time anybody actually crossed the end zone, but it was 2-point. Anyway.
Yeah.
So we got to do a lot of great ACC football.
We're still rebuilding up in Charlottesville.
Hey, you're on your way, man. Yeah. You're on your way.
We're getting better.
Yeah.
So I definitely wanted to ask you about this. I mentioned you've done some stuff pregame, postgame on 680, but last year.
Oh, I didn't get to. Yeah.
No, it's okay.
Sorry,
no, you're fine. I wanted to ask you on the radio side. This was definitely what I most wanted to hear from you about. Was last season you got the chance to come up and be the guy for a big league series and play-by-play. And correct me if I'm wrong. Was the first game rained out?
Sure was.
Yeah, okay.
Sure was.
The game you've been waiting your whole life for.
Whole life for.
Yeah, what was that whole weekend, the whole experience like?
Well, I'll start with this. I've told Joe and Jay Chad this numerous times, and I just want to say thank you again for putting up with what had to be the most nervous person they've ever come across in their lives, much less in this role. And again, Joe, I've known Joe, like I said, working the press box the last 12, 13 years, so and also I grew up watching Joe, so that's a huge part of it. And again, as somebody who didn't have much of a baseball background, I'm trying to learn as much as I can. Joe Simpson's probably like my number one source on a nightly basis, trying to learn, hearing what he's talking about. So that was surreal. And yeah, it felt like, and maybe it felt like the biggest day of my life. Because that's what I wanted to do for so long. And I love baseball so much. And I remember, thinking as a kid, especially, I don't think I'd be the first person to tell you like 8th, 9th, 10th grade, like there's going to be some tough years as you're trying to like get your feet in the ground and get your mind wrapped around what this whole adult experience or life experience is. Braves TV was a massive, massive highlight for me on a nightly basis. Like I remember like there were days where I like, again, wake up and got to do school and got to do all this stuff. I'm like, just 7 o'clock. I get to 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Boo's going to be there. Joe's going to be there. It's going to be awesome. And I remember, actually, this is a quick sidebar. I remember watching The Right Stuff, you know, that movie about astronauts.
Oh, yeah.
And so they'd say, like, oh, they're the best of the best. And they're like, you know, they can do this, that. They're like, superheroes. And I was like, that's how I feel about baseball broadcasters. Yeah. They're like astronauts.
Yeah.
So
Joe Simpson's like your
Chuck
Yeager. And,
yeah, absolutely. Okay. Got Buzz Aldrin, man. So I know that's just how my mind. Like I really felt like those guys were like, this is so lame. They felt like superheroes to me. Like again, they brought me so much joy. And there were a lot of days in my adolescence where like the highlight of my day was watching Chip and Joe or watching Boog and Joe, and you know, watching Brooks Conrad hit walk-off grand slams.
Yeah.
Epic.
That's
maybe my favorite all time.
One of the best moments in Braves history ever.
Easily.
Yeah.
So anyway, all the way back to that day. Couldn't have been more nervous. I remember Gretchen, again, our TV producer, she came to the radio booth to wish me good luck, and she brought a trash bag. She was like, yeah, Joe said you might need this. So I got a picture taken with the trash bag. It's a great memory.
Did you save it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll never. We got to go on and do the pregame show. So we did the pregame show, and then we come on. Like the only time we're on the air live was to say a game got rained out. And Joe's like, well, Wiley, you got to wait one more day, you know, whatever. And I was like, Joe, when I dreamt of this moment the last 25 years, I always envisioned a rain out on the first day. I'm so thrilled I got a chance to do it. That was a long night, obviously. Although the last like several weeks had been like so it was. I think I was so out of nerves at that point that I showed up the next day and I was like, here I am. Here we go.
You're ready, yeah. Was the first game? I know it was a win, right?
It was.
Was it a walk-off?
It was a walk-off. It was in the 10th inning. Joe called it, and I'm okay with that because my highlight, I guess, because that was the only game we won in the series. We ended up losing the next two to St. Louis, but was the Eddie Rosario's, home run to give. I guess he must have tied the game. But it was his, first game back at Truist Park since the World Series, and so that was kind of that's. If I have a moment from that weekend or a highlight that I'll make sure I've got saved like 5 different places, it's that one. So. But yeah, no, again, I just go back to Joe and Jay Chad were just, not going to surprise anybody, but they were just so, reassuring, affirming, all those things. And I think by the time we got to Sunday, once I got to the doubleheader, I felt like I was able to kind of relax and breathe a little bit. And, regardless of, where my career doesn't go, I can only imagine how many people have grown up dreaming of doing a Braves baseball game, and I just feel so just grateful that I had a chance to do it, man. It just for what this organization has meant in my life, and it, honestly, I was talking to a buddy about this actually the other day. I was at a game working, and he came down and said hello. We were just kind of looking around, being like, dude, like our lives are kind of like Braves baseball is like a big part of them. Like we can almost look at everything that's happened in our lives like through Braves baseball. Because he and I would go. We would get off school, or we would get off work. We'd get out of school and we'd get the $1 tickets and just go down there and hang out for like 6 hours. Like we'd go to we get the $1 ticket. You got to walk in. We'd watch BP. Like, yeah, I cannot overstate the impact Braves baseball has had on my life. Which is, it sounds kind of obnoxious in a way, but like that's just the truth, man. It's been huge.
Well, me and you both, brother.
Yeah,
that's seriously that's. That's why I'm here. That's why you and I are sitting here talking. Braves baseball did that somehow.
100%.
Pretty amazing.
Yep.
All right. Well, last question. Just this year on Fanduel, you're the primary sideline guy, and how's it going? I know Victoria and I are on the social media side of things with the Braves, and we see how much the fans, Braves country, loves you. I hope you feel that. I hope you're feeling that online and in person and on TV. But how's it going?
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's been unbelievable, man. I am just really appreciative of all the people in the truck and production-wise that have been so supportive. I think that's almost like what has made it so cool. Like, look, doing Braves baseball in any capacity was going to be like maybe the coolest thing to ever happen to me. But having worked in the truck the last 4 years and knowing everybody, like I told people, like I could not have had an easier place to sort of take that step, onto the stage, if you will, because, I'm doing the hit. It's on Braves TV. Everybody's watching, but at the same time, it's like, oh, that's Hunter. I've known that guy for 5 years. He's just the camera guy, and there's Patty. He's holding the light, and I'm just talking to those two guys. Like we play golf together. I felt so comfortable despite being in like a really high pressure situation. It was a weird contrast, and I think that helped a lot. So I'm really thankful to everybody on the Braves TV production side. Extremely grateful to people like Derek Schiller and Jen Gilio and who've kind of given me the green light to have some fun. And like I said, I go back to somebody asked me actually recently, like when you're broadcasting, like who are you envisioning, like who are you talking to? And for me, I honestly, and maybe this is, I don't know if this is selfish or narcissistic or what, but like I envision myself like as a 14-year-old, because like that's like who I like. Because it meant so much to him that like I try and cater it to that person who just loves baseball, wouldn't want to be anywhere else, and that's kind of how I feel every day when I walk into work. So it's been really cool, and I got to throw this in there. It's hysterical. My dad's gonna get mad at me, but it just is what it is. Sorry.
Okay.
And let the record show, he's the only reason I'm doing what I'm doing. By the way, he was kind of the same way. When he was 6 years old, this is a really off track, but feel free to edit this out.
Nope.
When he was 6 years old, he had a penny lodged in his throat, nearly choked, and his grandfather, who was a doctor, got it out of his throat, and he said at that point he wanted to be a doctor.
Really?
That was it. Yep. It was the whole thing. And I remember like I heard that story from my dad when I was probably, 9, 10 years old, and I was just kind of like, all right, well, I'm gonna be a baseball announcer. I'm gonna be a sports announcer. Like he made his choice at 6, and like that's what I want to do. So I can't tell you my parents are obviously, I'm just really grateful to them. All right, I said all that. Okay, now I can throw them under the bus. This is exciting.
Yes, let's go.
So my dad, last year, and I was doing it for the first time. And again, my dad is born and raised in Atlanta. He went to Atlanta Crackers games with that same grandfather, with my great grandfather. Anyway. So again, like he's Atlanta as it gets. And he texted me like the first week or two I was doing it last year. He's like, Wiley, a lot of people watch the Braves. And I was like, yeah, they do. He's like, well, I think there are some people who just go to work and come home and they turn the Braves game on. I said, yeah, I do. He's like, we never did that. So he's almost like realizing like, Braves baseball thing is a big deal. And the only other story that goes with that, and I got to throw this in there, is my parents got married in August of '92. So one of their first, I shouldn't say first, I mean they're married, but one of their first stories from being a married couple was my mom. He'd never brought her to a Braves game before. My mom's from Chicago originally, and again, not a baseball person. And so they go to their first Braves baseball game, October of '92. It's against the Pirates. Final game of that National League Championship Series.
No way.
That's my mom's first ever Braves game. Was Sid Slid.
Holy cow!
And I give my dad some grief. Like he followed the Braves. I don't think he appreciated that Braves baseball could mean so much to some people. But he knows the Braves. Like he knew Maddox, Glavine, Smoltz. Like he remembers he caught a ball from Joe Torre back when he was a kid. Like he knows baseball to a certain degree. But I wasn't there. But my dad told me this story. I'll never forget him saying. He says, "Yeah, we saw Sid Slid. It was unbelievable. We get in the car, we're driving home, sitting in traffic, and your mother looks over at me and goes, Perry, that was a lot of fun. Are all the baseball games like that? We should do that more often. That was just terrific. Baseball's a lot of fun." My dad looks at me and is like, "You have no idea what you just saw." No idea. So again, I love my parents. I would not be here without them. And I... Again, only because I feel free to edit all this out. But
no. Every second of that is staying.
Yeah. But no, I 100% am not here if they hadn't been so supportive, not just of like chasing this professionally, but like you're just let me watch baseball and like take me to games and basically just sort of like supporting. Like I had a passion, and they're like, "This is cool," and they knew nothing about baseball, but they were like, "This is really cool. You care about this?" Like. My mom would sit out, before I could drive, she would sit out and wait. I went to the last game of the 2009 season. There was a 15-inning game, and my mom shows me the 10th inning. And I'm like, "Mom, we're not leaving until the game's over." And she's like, "Okay." So she waited outside Turner Field for like an hour and a half, like for us to watch the end of the game. I think, my parents, I just tell them they're exactly what I they couldn't have done a better job as far as allowing me to pursue what I wanted to do and being supportive, even though they didn't really know what was going on.
That's beautiful. I love that, especially, honestly, selfishly, not even for the show, for me personally, as a pretty new parent.
Yeah,
it's like I'm still very much figuring out the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like you just learn as you go. But I think that's one thing I do know and understand is that I want more than anything for my daughter. I want her to find whatever it is in life that she loves. And it's like I'm a big Jason Isbell fan, so it's like his song "Something to Love." It's like just find what makes you happy, girl, and do it till you're gone. That line, I'm like, if I have one line for my kid, it's that. So, and I think that's the part of it is letting your kids discover what that is, and that's beautiful that your parents got that, and
they freaking crushed it.
Yeah,
Just nailed it.
Waiting in the parking lot an hour and a half for 5 extra innings.
Yeah,
that's a good parent.
It was the last day of the season. The Braves aren't even. That was one of the few years they weren't going to the playoffs. It was against the Nats. Couldn't have been a more meaningless game. Justin Maxwell was making his major league debut for the Nats and forgot how many outs there were in the inning.
Oh,
and so
wow.
like they got one out. You go back and look at the highlight. We're sitting down the left field line. He's playing left field. They get one out. He starts jogging. And they're like, "Hey, that's one out." And he goes, "Ugh." So I could, again, 15 years later, I know exactly how nervous he was because that's what I was in that radio booth. But it was so funny. He was I'll never forget that. Anyway.
Well, Wiley, thank you so much for taking the time, to be here, sharing your story. I think that especially now that more and more people in Braves country are getting to know you and love seeing you and hearing you every night, I think it's great, and I think it's important for them to get to hear, the hard work and the sacrifice and the grind that it took to get here. I think sometimes we see somebody, you're watching your team or whatever it is show you're watching, and suddenly there's somebody that's now on your TV every day, and like, oh, where'd this person come from? And to me, I love hearing I don't like using the word origin story, but I love hearing
I think the origin story is fine.
I think it's like, well, how did that person get there? And to hear the whole story, and it's I never get tired of hearing it, and this is fantastic. So, buddy, thank you so much for taking the time.
Ricky, it was a treat. Again, appreciate you. You were another one of those familiar faces the last couple of years when I'm stepping into some new roles. But, all right, Ricky's right there. Okay, I'm still we're good. I'm like dead serious, man. So no, I appreciate you guys, Victoria. It's always a pleasure sitting in the dugout and making quips about what's going on in the field, crafting new tweets for @Braves. But yeah, man, no, I appreciate you guys having me on. And again, as far as Braves country is concerned, like I could not be more of it. So I hope everybody knows the reverence I have, not just for the broadcast, but just for the whole experience, because I feel like I'm a product of it. So
that's awesome. All right, let's go grab lunch at Nuevo Laredo now.
Yeah, we're on our way.
Let's see it.
No jalapenos in the cheese dip. None.
Thank you, Wiley. Appreciate it, buddy.
Absolutely.